Hello to you all. I'm sitting outside, so you'll hear the wind. It's very windy in Johannesburg this morning. And this is by far, I'll call it weird, but it's not weird, download that I have ever received. When people speak of the fear of God, I realize that for the past 3 or 4 months, I have been dealing with the fear of God. On this channel, I've shared so many different things. And I get the sense that some of my content resonates with certain pockets of people. But I believe that there is a pocket of people that are going to receive this message that will understand this message. Because I don't want to dilute this message, I don't want to distort it, I don't want it to lose its truth. But I just want to say, first of all, that I'm calling it weird, but I remember the very first video I shared, I had a similar feeling. I remember another video I shared on the divine masculine and the divine feminine, which did a lot of healing for me personally when I revisited it and listened to it. It was like an immediate healing for me. And it had this similar weirdness. But I have not felt this, I have not felt that sense with this power until today. It's very powerful today. And I've also been navigating my own personal identity crisis, reconciling this aspect of me with my personal identity that I move around in the world with. I believe I've somewhat overcome that, but that I don't want it to interfere with this specific message because it's a totally separate topic. One of the things I've shared is my poetry. I've shared poetry. There's one piece called Confusion Reigns. And much like a lot of my other content that I share here on Pyramid Energy, there is something that I do. I go back to my content and I listen to it. It's healing content. It's channeled content. I haven't been able to identify the source. When I say I haven't been able to identify the source, I mean I have not been able to put a name to the source of these downloads. What I have been able to figure out is that the spirit guides are many. The spirit guides are many. The sources are many. And again, I feel my throat challenging me here because I want to say, one of my early ones was that God is everything, everything. And so that has saved me from picking apart, there's this power struggle between God and how I identify with the source of these things that I speak of. So what I'm addressing here is a personal struggle, a spiritual struggle, but I'm sharing it because I've had some revelations today. And I'm sharing this directly from my heart because I love to write. I love to write everything. That's how I've written my poetry. That's how I've written a lot of the messages that I share. But this, similar to, I deal a lot with symbols. I visualize, I see symbols, and I have to Google what the meanings of these things are because I mean, this world is full of so much information, and I don't want to dilute the message by, let's say, if the symbol is an apple, by now going deep diving into what an apple is on my own when there's already information out there on what an apple is. So when I Google it, it allows me to gather all this information and to prepare a message to share. And so this download, it was similar to this. It was a deep dive on the meanings of things, and it was happening too quickly, so I'm just going to share what I already know. I already know this. This next part I want to just talk about before I go where I'm going is, no doubt, anyone who's listening to this, we all come from various spiritual backgrounds. And by spiritual backgrounds, I mean, like if I speak, let's say, use myself as an example, I am not a Christian. And the reason I'm saying that I am not a Christian is because some of the things I'm about to speak about may become alienating if I refer to a Jesus, a Christ, a God, a spirit. All of those words, they are so triggering in certain ways and alienating because they each carry so much, and I don't want to call it baggage, but it is baggage. They have all these attachments of and connotations and things that a lot of us have worked hard to strip so that we can access the truth. And I don't know the Bible. And I don't know the Quran, and I don't know any of these books that have come before us. But my love of literature comes from, it's the same reason I love Google. Like, we will never know everything. We will never know everything, but we are given the gift of access to a wealth of information. Google is an ocean of information. Somehow what we need finds us. Netflix, the Bible is one. And I sometimes find it very difficult to navigate some things in the Bible. I mean, where do you begin with the Bible if you don't know the Bible? And the reason I've actually given this whole preamble is because I've found myself drawn sometimes to certain Bible verses. And when I've shared them on my personal Instagram, I've been blasted for being challenged for using the word God, you know, and I'm done with that. I'm done with explaining why I love something or whatever. I mean, I love Rumi. Rumi's not Christian. I mean, can we have the space to enjoy the literature that is available to us in peace? Now, with that said, in the last few months, not even last few months, for a while now, there's been a lot of chatter around the return of Christ. The word Christ itself carries a lot with it. Christ consciousness, Jesus Christ, all these things, you know. And yes, we do have to strip, because otherwise we won't get to the truth. If you have to use a word, and I'm a word person, if you have to use words according to everything they carry with them, you won't be able to get to the truth. You've got to keep moving forward and keep stripping as you move forward. But I'm telling you, with the same knowing that I've shared my messages with, some I do not know the source, some I do not know the meaning. But I'm telling you with that same, I want to use the word authority. It's a self-authority. It's not like a global authority or anything, but it's for people who are going to hear this, Jesus has returned. Ooh, I'm struggling with that. Jesus has returned. And I just took a moment there to prepare myself for some comments that I might get, which is fine, because sometimes a message is more important than the fear. And that's why I spoke of the fear of God. I have a helicopter passing, and in the last year, I've come to know that it's like it challenges the, I have to let the helicopter pass. A helicopter passing signifies for me a moment for my throat to catch up with the words I'm going to share. There is a group of people, there is a collective that internally knows that they are a manifestation of Jesus Christ, and they are afraid to declare it. And how I got to this, similar to my other downloads, how I got to this was a poem that I shared a few weeks ago. The poem is a bit crazy, it sounds crazy, but I knew that poem is important. I knew it was important, I know it is important. And I'm just going to open it up. It's called Confusion Reigns. What I'll do is I'll share the words on the screen, and I'm going to clip it in to this audio now. A king is born in silence. Amidst doubt and speculation, threat and isolation, what was always to be born is born. A healer of healers, the impossible still has a miracle planted in time. Son of the Son, born of a mother, the birth of sin brings redemption. This poem has an intimidating air to it. And it's had me picking the words apart. You know, this is literature analysis, I understand. You know, I never studied literature or anything, and I didn't do very well at English at school. But the irony, because I feel like I did. I feel like I did at this point in my life. And that growth has come from, again, stripping parts of myself, and I realize I love literature, and one does not need a degree to do certain things, many things. This poem. So I've worked through this poem in sections, and a lot is revealed literally in each line. And I don't know how I'm going to get through this without this video becoming 10 hours or whatever, but I'm going to do it. A king is born in silence. I'm laughing here to myself because whenever I Google a symbol, I have a standard approach. It helps me to create order for myself. If it's apple, I will say apple spiritual meaning, and whatever comes up is what comes up. And when this morning, just to jump to the end of the poem, I needed to understand the spiritual meaning of son, because we know that son, like versus daughter, signifies a male. But I know that here we understand that there's a masculine and feminine, and there's so much more to gender than to look at masculine and feminine in the sense of gender is very limiting in terms of the meaning of things and the message. But this morning, every time I search one of the words from this poem, it pops up with a website that a metaphysical Christian website, which I think is appropriate for this. And I really respect the approach of the analysis that comes through from their language is accessible to me to be able to get the meaning of what I need out. And so I put king, spiritual meaning. Metaphysical meaning of king, righteous. The executive faculty in every man whose life is guided, governed, and directed by spirit. And it says, see kingdom. This person, and I'm going to now reduce this king to a person, because that person, that king that has been born in silence, is the collective that I'm speaking to. So this is someone who is guided by spirit, governed by spirit, much like me, much like myself. You would have felt, you would have already been dealing with your relationship with spirit, but at some point, something way more powerful entered the room. And when I say the room, I mean, your room, your space. So you were able to recognize the power of this, the depth of the spirit that has entered your field, your existence, that is coming through your channel. Okay? Born in silence speaks to this personal journey, this very private journey, this very internal journey. And I believe that this poem needed to be written and shared because a confirmation is needed. Wow. The word confirmation coming up is also a very Christian a very Christian term. A confirmation being, as a Christian, you're baptized most of the time as a child. Let me not say most of the time. Let me just say, let's say in the Anglican faith, for example, a baby is baptized. In their early years, a child is baptized. And then around their teenage years, they are confirmed, which is because your parents have you baptized on your behalf. You're then taken through the school, which allows you to then confirm your, I don't know what the word is, to confirm your, let's just call it your Christianity. Again, I said I don't know the Bible, and I don't know the rules. I'm not too familiar, And I believe that's what's actually happening here. It's like, these things for me, like I said, I love literature. So these things for me are symbolic of a journey that's taking place. So when I'm drawing from the Bible for the purposes of this download, when I'm drawing from the Bible, when I'm drawing it for wisdom, to be able to share wisdom on this coming out that is taking place. And so a king is born in silence. A king also leads very much back to a being who is very powerful in this sense of being directed by spirit. And so this person is able to be guided directly by God in mysterious and powerful and clear ways. This person serves God. This person does things for the purposes of God. This person's purpose is God. But currently this person is afraid to say that because what? Perhaps it sounds obnoxious. Perhaps it sounds like you're too big for your boots. Perhaps it sounds like you think you're better than other people. That is not the point. The point is that we are told that Jesus will return. We are not told that Jesus will return the way he's been depicted to us as a human being with caramelish skin and long hair and a white robe. We're speaking about the Jesus that was persecuted. The Jesus that was willing to give up their life so that others didn't have to worry about all the things they've done wrong in order to feel peace, in order to be able to be who they are and to serve their own purpose. We're speaking about the person who was able to prove to people that he was sent by God through his word and through his innate gift of healing, his ability to wake other healers up. That is the essence I'm appealing to in you. The poem goes on to say, amidst doubt and speculation, threat and isolation, what was always to be born is born. The firstborn is like a birthborn, and the secondborn is speaks to a carrier. So you're the carrier. And I don't think I need to go too much into this stanza. Amidst doubt and speculation, threat and isolation, you would have gone through these emotions, these feelings, these blocks. But this was always going to happen. This was always going to happen. And you being the carrier of this essence, this essence has arrived in your life and it is here. I'm just declaring it for you. I'm declaring it on your behalf. It's here. A healer of healers. I'm going to tell you, these are powerful people. Because personally, as a healer, I have benefited from other healers. And healers too, we also need healing. But while we're healing, we need to remember that we don't only heal for ourselves. We heal so that we can do our work, and we heal so that we can help other healers to rise. A healer of healers. And I knew when I was writing this poem, and I was never going to say it at the time, but I knew that this also spoke to Jesus. And a healer of healers also speaks to, you know, when they say the King of Kings, or it's like, a healer of healers is like, you have never seen a healer like this before. Like, wow. The impossible still has a miracle planted in time. The word impossible. Because how many times have we dealt with or heard this concept that Jesus is returning. My feeling on this is that the world does not want to allow the return of Jesus. That determines the narrative. That determines how much strength and courage it would require for Jesus to in fact return. The only way Jesus could return is if that noise was shut out. And there's my throat again. As I was saying that, I received a visual of Bethlehem and Christmas. I mean, I'm not sure if the word Christmas actually comes up in the Bible. Sorry, I don't know. But the night that Jesus was born. Jesus being carried by Mary, Joseph and Mary looking for somewhere to stay the night because Jesus was coming. This woman is highly expectant. She cannot explain how this baby landed in her tummy. But it's being born and they need somewhere to rest for this healer of healers to come out. Everywhere, every door they knock on has no room. This inn has no space. I'm remembering because my daughter had a nativity play and she was Mother Mary and that line came up. We have no room. Everywhere they knocked had no room for Jesus to be born. How ironic. The impossible still has a miracle planted in time. That is to say, whatever God, let me not say whatever, God planted Jesus Christ in Mary's tummy. And Jesus was born according to the Bible. It's impossible. The immaculate conception occurred according to the Bible. You know, they're telling a story. People along the way took their time to write all of these stories down that people continue to draw wisdom from to this day. Believers and non-believers. Some find the same truth elsewhere in other books and other literature, but look, we have the Bible, so let's use that. The impossible planted a miracle in time. This is where we live. We live in time. And no matter what we say, no matter what we try and what we try not to believe, what we try convince people or not, this miracle was planted in time. It was planted. And it has been born. And it's being carried by someone who doesn't believe that there is room for this thing to be born. But they know that they heal people. They know that they heal healers. They've gone through their doubt. They've dealt with a speculation from elsewhere, from outside. They've felt the threat. They have dealt with the isolation. They have gone into isolation to heal, to allow this essence that has been developing to make room for it, to make room for it. And I keep going back to this visual of Bethlehem because everyone sees the star in the sky that's appeared out of nowhere. And by following that star, they're able to find where Jesus Christ is to be born. So much mystery, hey? I understand that this is a lot to accept. But my role here is to confirm this to you. I can only imagine Mary, how she felt carrying Jesus Christ. How she was expected to explain herself. So this is according to the Bible, this has happened. This has happened. And according to the Bible, I think the Messiah's plans were always to return. How? When? Through who? What does Jesus look like? Well, Jesus looks like you. There's still so much more to this. This is where I got to the last, and you must understand each of these stanzas I've split over time and unpacked and gone deep to get what I need to get out of it. And today was the day that I got to the last one. And this last one is when this is when I was literally shoved forward to share this message. Because I needed to understand what the spiritual meaning of the word son is. And it led me to this metaphysical, it's called truthunity.net. Thank you to the people who have this website, okay? Because when I started reading this, it opened up John 4. I suppose this is John verse 4. And it has metaphysical footnotes, which is amazing for a spiritually minded, that's my language. And it speaks of Jesus and the woman of Samaria. And I don't know how to chew this one off. But this piece that I found here confirms everything that I've been feeling for the past few months. First of all, the word John popped out at me. I have done my own deep dive again in the last few months on the significance of John. John the Baptist, also known as a prophet, the one who baptized Jesus, I think. Spent some time in Egypt, apparently. This is obviously, it stood out to me because this is pyramid energy, and I still don't know what name to put on the information that I channel through the content that I share on pyramid energy again. And there are so many other links to Egypt. I don't even know where to begin right now. But perhaps a month ago, maybe 6 weeks, I connected with a spirit guide called John. John came to me through a crystal, actually. And my background is that spiritually I started off by reading tarot cards. You know, things have grown since then. And I still love cards. But John said to me, when you sit on your bed and you pull out your cards and you're doing readings for yourself, rather hold this crystal and I will tell you everything that you need to know. And I let things be from that point, because, you know, when you're told that you will be told whatever you need to know, it doesn't mean that when you hold this crystal, a whole lot of words are going to come through. It doesn't necessarily mean that. For me, it was a message to disconnect from trying to figure out what John has to say to me through cards. And you know, I did. I went through it was around eclipse season earlier this year, where my vision for my cards was totally wiped out. And one of the scariest moments spiritually along my journey. But wow, the growth that I have had, my knowing strengthened through that detachment. And that's why I shared that quote by Socrates, because Socrates spoke of the wisdom of not knowing. Not knowing is the only way that you can access what you need to know. Because if you are not willing to unlearn what you have learned, you are putting a cap, a limit to the expansiveness and the depth of what is coming or what may be coming. You need to make room. In order to know, you need to unknow so that the knowing can be more. And so had I not gone through that, and I like to say I was eclipsed. I was eclipsed. Because, and you know, eclipses they provide illumination. I was eclipsed. And John came up again this past week. I mentioned the identity crisis that I went through, that I had to go through. And no doubt, had I not worked through that identity crisis, I definitely would not be sharing this message today. But essentially, oh my gosh, so I just had a whole gap of speech, because I was not prepared to do this here today like this, but it's come up. And essentially, my name is Khunzi. That's my name. And I've healed a lot of my own karma through my name. And again, that's a story for another day. But my name here on earth, the name that I was given as a child, is Khunzi. And in recent weeks, I have struggled to identify with that name because of pyramid energy. And when I say pyramid energy, I mean because of this channel and the revelations that I have that I've received through this channel. And so I found myself needing to reconcile Khunzi with pyramid energy. because when I receive comments on pyramid energy, I must respond to them. And I want to respond authentically. But I cannot respond authentically signing off pyramid energy, because Khunzi is not pyramid energy. Or perhaps Khunzi is pyramid energy. I mean, this has been my challenge. This has been the conundrum. And so I considered, okay, so maybe it's time for a new name. And so then I Googled, what is the significance of a new name? And the concept of baptism came up. So then I went and did a deep dive on the significance of a baptism. And essentially, a baptism, without going in too much into the Christian understanding of a baptism, I had to strip to get the essence. But essentially, a baptism is a process of being cleansed such that one can proclaim their dedication and life in Christ. And so I realized, okay, so we're going through a baptism. And so when John came up again here, this is where I really had to look at things. I really had to look at things and be like, John baptized Jesus. And I'm you know, my doubt is playing with me here slightly, but I believe I did read that. But John baptized Jesus. And so I believe that's why John has come through as a spirit guide to me to essentially baptize the Jesus in me. And I know anyone Christian is about to crucify me in this moment. But this message is not only for me. I'm not the only one. I'm just here to tell you, because if I deny this, then I'm denying everything that I've dedicated my life to. Because I've had to walk through the dark to grow to this point spiritually. I've had to go through darkness. My life, my entire life, for all intents and purposes, crumbled so that I can follow this star that I knew was going to lead me somewhere. And I must share this because the difficulty that I've had to work through says that at some point someone's going to have to say it. And the message that came to me while I was on this website, look, I haven't even finished this last stanza and the interpretation, look at me. But one of the things that I was told to do was share, and they presented it to me like a little 30-second share. You know, like they lured me in. They said, someone on the channel understands the Bible. So what do they call it when you do a call? So post a call to action. Go tell Pyramid Energy, the collective there, go tell them that there's someone out there that understands the Bible that you need to speak to. So you see, the way I saw this message was like, I need to now ask them to contact me and we'll have a little side chat. No, here I am, and you know who you are. And I've never felt so much like I'm speaking to people, like this much. You know who you are. I need to go back to this poem. Oh, I was on the website. This is overwhelming, you must understand. Thank you. This is overwhelming. But the process that you've been going through is a baptism. And it's so that you no longer have the fear that Jesus has returned through you. son of the sun, the metaphysical meaning of son is, it takes you to John chapter 4. I'm just going to read from here. And I remember reading this part and rather going to John, what they wrote about John, rather than the interpretation that was given here. But it does say, in the healing of the nobleman's son, the nobleman, representing exalted thoughts, makes more direct contact with divine mind, which is what is going on right now. And so seeks to have the healing power brought to bear upon that activity in the subconsciousness, which is apparently dying. In other words, losing sight of the life and substance necessary for its perfect expression. And so this brings me to this idea that this perfect expression, this Christ consciousness, and we've referred to this in a past video around the perfection of this expression, this thing you're bringing into the world. It is at threat. So this direct contact with divine mind is taking place, but healing power is needed to save this perfect expression from dying. Okay, just to take it back a bit. So, in the healing of the sun, I'm taking out a few words because it gets very difficult to interpret this when there's a lot of descriptive words before the main words that I need to focus on. In the healing of the sun, you the sun. In the healing of the sun, representing exalted thoughts, these are the things that you know and you've been thinking for a while, makes more direct contact with divine mind. That is this powerful expression and essence that has been accessed, that we're afraid to declare. And so seeks to have the healing power brought to bear upon that activity in the subconsciousness. Sun. And so this healing needs to be brought to the subconscious. So these doubts are now threatening essentially the survival of this perfect expression. That's what this sun, the significance of the word sun speaks to that. It also says Jesus did not go down to the sick child because in doing its quickening, healing work, the spiritual I am does not direct its force into the realm of effects or give weight to adverse appearances, but calmly and deliberately declares the truth. And so essentially, so I had to look up, there's a link to the word quickening here. Jesus did not go down to the sick child because in doing its quickening meaning an inflow of divine vitality into the body, which follows the affirmation of truth. To quicken is to make alive. Okay? Because in doing its quickening, healing work, so this is like, let's say me channeling to you, is quickening, healing work. The spiritual I am does not direct its force into the realm of effects or give weight to adverse experiences, as in, we do not overthink all the outside noise, but calmly and deliberately declares the truth, which is what I feel I'm doing right now. The subconsciousness receives the word and is comforted, healed. The bodily activities bear witness to the fact that harmony and order are restored. I don't feel I need to interpret that. But I do want to go in to this John verse 4. that was shared here, because this is the point at which I was told someone knows the Bible out there well, and that's who you need to speak to. And I mean, it led me to this point. It says here, and I'm going to just read this, and as I read it, I'm going to refer to the footnotes so that we don't get lost in, so that certain understandings are not lost. When therefore the Lord knew that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, in brackets it says, although Jesus himself baptized not, but his disciples, as in Jesus baptized his disciples, not everyone. He left Judea and departed again into Galilee, and he must needs pass through Samaria. So he needed to pass through Samaria to get to Galilee. So he cometh to a city of Samaria called Sychar, excuse pronunciation or mispronunciation, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. And Jacob's well was there. And the footnote says Samaria, Sychar, and Jacob. The name Samaria means watchtower. And Samaria represents that department of the objective consciousness which functions through the head. The name Sychar means drunken, and the place symbolizes a confused state of mind. Sychar was located near the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Physiologically, it corresponds to the forehead, seat of intellectual perception. Here also is Jacob's well, inspiration through the intellect alone. And so I'm not sure whether I read this before. When I read it earlier, it felt as though it was referring to the third eye. So what we cannot see physically, but what we know through our intuitive perception. And this confused state of mind is this confusion that needs to be dispelled. And again, that poem was called Confusion Reigns. So essentially confusion becomes the king, because it is through trusting this vision and trusting this knowing that what needs to be seen can be seen or known. It goes on to say, Jesus therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus by the well. It was about the 6th hour. So he was tired and he stopped for rest. There cometh a woman of Samaria. And it says here, Samaria, a woman of Samaria. The Samarian woman represents the duality of the soul or subconsciousness. It is not the true source of wisdom, although many searchers after truth fail to distinguish between its revelations and those of spirit. In Hindu metaphysics, it is known as the human and animal soul. Okay, so for me, this speaks to the duality between, like it's essentially about how I identify with what seems to be coming through intuitively. So this Christ consciousness, there's a struggle between what is being sourced from God and what is being sourced from what I feel I know intuitively. So it's this questioning and this struggling to trust what is coming through from this essence. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, Give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman therefore saith unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, who am a Samaritan woman? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans, it says in brackets. Jesus answered and said, so essentially this Samaritan woman is saying, why would you ask to drink from me? Because he's not supposed to ask her for a drink. Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked him, and he would have given thee living water. And what this means to me is, if you could understand, or if you could allow yourself to understand who it is that is sharing this, who's making this request for water from you, you would share your water with me. Essentially, you would be able to see that I need your water. This is what you have. Like, it's like this, and I'm struggling to find the words for this. This water is an offering from the human aspect to God, and has to go from the human to God, even though it doesn't make sense that God would request something from a human. But what God needs can only be provided by a human. Give me to drink. Thou wouldest have asked him. No. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. As in, like, where should I put this water now? The well is too deep. This speaks of, like, I suppose, this fear of God. Like, how deep does this go? What is the size? Whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his sons, and his cattle? That is, are you bigger than everything that I have been taught and know? Everything that has kept me alive and fed me and gave me sustenance, are you bigger than that? Everything I've been taught, are you bigger than that? Jesus answered and said unto her, Every one that drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall become in him a well of water springing up unto eternal life. The woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come all the way hither to draw. And it says here, give me this water means the Samaritans claimed to be descendants of Jacob, and they used portions of the Hebrew scriptures, but in the eyes of the Israelites, the Samaritans were pretenders, not true followers of Jehovah. Thus, spiritually enlightened people see in psychic and spiritistic phenomena and the revelations of that branch of occultism an imitation of truth, without a true understanding of its relation to spirit. I mean, just reading that, it feels like me. Okay? But the soul must have truth, and Christ recognizes the soul as worthy. Hence, the wonderful lesson of John chapter 4, verse 9 to 26, given to one auditor. The soul draws its life from both the earthly side of existence, Jacob's well, and the spiritual, the Jew, but is destined to draw from a higher fount, omnipotent spirit. Jesus asked the woman for a drink, which indicates the universality of the spiritual life present in the Samaritan woman as well as in Jesus. Jesus saith unto her, Call thy husband and come hither. This part was interesting. The woman answered and said unto him, I have no husband. Jesus saith unto her, Thou sayest well, I have no husband, for thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. This hast thou said truly. Something's going on here around this woman denying that she has a husband, and Jesus basically saying to her, yeah, you're saying that even though you've had 5 husbands and you still know that the one that you currently have is not the true one. And I don't want to interpret that further, but for me it speaks a lot to me. But essentially it continues to say, the woman saith unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. So he has just said something to her that makes her know that he knows what he's talking about. So he asks her a question. She answers, and he unpacks her answer to reveal her own truth to her, to know that I know stuff that there's not much more I can do but explain through knowing what I know about you. Which is often, actually, I'll just say, as a psychic, and I don't like using that word, because growing up for me, a psychic was one who knew everything. And I don't know everything, but I've found that the word psychic is now being like accepted as a word for a person with psychic abilities. And as a psychic, I'd say that, you know, if you said to someone, I'm a psychic, obviously you're going to get received with like, oh yeah, whatever. And so you don't do that. Instead, somehow words come out of your mouth and people just wonder to themselves how you know that. And also in that moment, there's also this like, I don't even know how my words landed on you. I often go through that. I don't even know how my words land on someone. But I've come to learn that the spirit that shares these words with me, I channel the words out and I know they're going to land on the person in the perfect way that they need to land on him. I've just had to learn to trust that. And she goes on to say, our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh, when neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem shall ye worship the Father. Ye worship that which ye know not. You actually like to say, you don't know what it is you're worshipping. So he's come to tell her truth, you know. We worship that which we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and truth. For such doth the Father seek to be his worshippers. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship in spirit and truth. The woman saith unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, he that is called Christ. When he is come, he will declare unto us all things. Jesus saith unto her, I that speaketh unto thee am he. This is where I just realized, you know, this is a lot. Because what sent me here was that poem. And again, I had no understanding of the poem. And just reading this, for me, it is a conversation. Yes, here it's between Jesus and something just happened with my voice. It's like my ears and my voice, something just happened. But it's like a different resonance that I'm observing. If that's the word, is that the word? Resonance. It's like it's lifted and the audio sounds different. And I'm sitting outside on the grass. Yes, on a blanket on the grass, but anyway, I don't know. It's like a different kind of electricity. Anyway, we're here now. And it's like a conversation between Jesus and this woman of Samaria. And she's explaining to him that I heard, we've been taught that Jesus is coming. And that he will tell us everything. It's like a revelation for her. It feels like this conversation I was having with myself. It's like it's right there in plain sight. And, you know, I've already written the title to this. I wrote it halfway when I had to take a break. And obviously you would have seen it. But it's essentially where we kind of lifted off with this whole conversation. And so what's happening is that there's a conversation between the self, let's say me, and this voice that has presented itself, voice being a carrier of God's message in the form of Jesus, again, not a human, perhaps as the human, I'm the human having this conversation with the idea of what may be taking place here. And the concept of the things that this voice knows. that I struggle to connect to as a human being. And it goes on to say, and upon this came his disciples, and they marveled that he was speaking with a woman. Yet no man said, what seekest thou? Or why speakest thou with her? So the woman left her water pot. So there's a surprise that this conversation is even happening, because, let's look at like a woman, first of all. I suppose at a point in time, women were seen as inferior, not worthy of being addressed by someone so powerful, or from a certain stature or class or society or whatever. And so there's a surprise that this woman is who's having this conversation. And again, this is like a surprise that, am I really having this conversation, and why me, and how is this even happening? So the woman left her water pot and went away into the city, and saith to the people, come see a man who told me all things that ever I did. Can this be the Christ? They went out to the city and were coming to him. In the meanwhile the disciples prayed him, saying, Rabbi, eat. But he said unto them, I have meat to eat, that ye know not. The disciples therefore said one to another, hath any man brought him aught to eat? Has anyone brought this man something to eat? And he's basically saying, I have meat that you don't even, I have meat to eat that you don't know. Like there's so much more to this. Jesus saith unto them, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to accomplish his work. Say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh the harvest. Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes, and look on the fields, that they are white already unto harvest. As in, I know you keep saying that it's going to be another 4 months before harvest, but I'm telling you, look up, look. Everything is already there in plain sight in front of you. It's already harvest time. He that reapeth receiveth wages, and gathereth fruit unto life eternal. And we've spoken about this before. This reference to fruit reminds me of the share that I did maybe last week or something with the apple. That there's this apple, and it represents this perfectly delivered abundance that is going to continue to provide further apples, further abundance, further fruit because of the seeds inside of it. It's like this fruit unto life eternal is this well that you need to accept is infinite. It has no bottom. It's bottomless. It has no limit. Like the ocean, if you could swim and swim and swim and swim to the bottom of the ocean, take forever, obviously you still assume that there's a floor at the bottom. There is no floor to this. He that reapeth receive wages, and gathereth fruit unto life eternal, that he that soweth and he that reapeth may rejoice together. This also got me, because it's like the one who, and I've got such a tingling on my crown right now, the one who's planted the seed, and the one that is to heal from this seed, this healing. So let's, for example, say I have sowed a seed here by sharing this video. You that understand this video are going to reap, so that we together can rejoice. And I think that's the point where I walked outside to come and share this. For herein is the saying true, one soweth and another reapeth. I sent you to reap that whereon ye have not labored, others have labored, and ye are entered into their labor. It took me quite a while to unpack this, but I managed to work through it with my own words, and what I came to was, one sows and one reaps. I sent you to reap. I sent you to receive, essentially. I sent you to receive that whereon ye have not labored. I sent you to come and benefit from something that you have not worked on. You didn't have to do the hard work for this. Others have done this hard work. Others have labored. Others have done this hard work. And ye are entered into their labor, and now you are going to do this work too. That's what I gathered from that. And from that city, many of the Samaritans believed on him because of the word of the woman who testified, "He told me all things that ever I did." So when the Samaritans came unto him, they besought him to abide with them, and he abode there 2 days. And many more believed because of his word. And they said to the woman, "Now we believe, not because of thy speaking, for we have heard for ourselves, and know that this is indeed the Savior of the world." And that brings me to the end here, because I believe that, and here's that voice change again, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, I can feel it. This carrier of God's words would have had to have a conversation and convince this unsuspecting human that he is carrying God's voice and that it is God's voice. And there are things that are said through God's voice that convince this carrier of God's voice that that must be God, it's got to be God. And essentially is able, through this story, to convince others who have not yet been able to reach this conclusion that it is true. So that closes that large portion of the download. And what's funny is that I always bring a glass of water outside with me when I sit out here. And before I did this, I actually fetched 2 because I knew I was going to need them. I knew this one was going to be a large one. And while I will still save the story of my identity crisis for another day, what I will say now is when I respond to your comments and when I'm speaking on these audios like this, I will share that it is me. But there will be times that I step out and I speak as pyramid energy, and I'm not actually sure. I'm not actually sure anymore. I actually don't know how it's going to look going forward. I don't know how it's going to look going forward. I must say I have enjoyed just sharing this from myself. And we'll see how it goes. But what I wanted to share, there are some visuals that I received months ago, before I started Pyramid Energy, and I just keep the notes in my phone. And one of the things was, it was very challenging for me when this godlike energy started to come through. And I suppose that's why I speak to this challenge when anything that may sound Christian comes through, because I'll just share that I was baptized Anglican as a child. I don't want to go into my relationship with church and all that for here. That's a story for another day. But again, I don't identify as a Christian. And the reason for that is that it does not give me room to build my own relationship through the source. And I'm grateful for that decision. It was a personal decision. I never had to denounce anything or whatever. I'm free, and so I've been able to share. This is probably the most I've challenged myself sharing some of the things I've shared today. But again, I've done a lot of work to be able to speak on this topic. And also cannot ignore it. What am I supposed to do with it? Pyramid Energy was created so that I could share what is channeled. And if I don't, honestly, I'll lose my mind if I don't share what I channel. I will. And I'll lose myself. But God started to come through when a friend of mine told me that I should watch the Testament story of Testament, the story of Moses on Netflix. Watching that miniseries sent me somewhere. It really had me questioning my purpose. I struggled to connect with the concept of seeing myself perhaps as Moses. And in the same symbolic way that I'm speaking to you today, not in a I am Moses way, and I feel like you'll understand what I'm saying. My purpose, how I've even got to this point in my journey, knowing that I started with just essentially a little light that I had to follow, a light I knew I had to follow. And this concept of freeing others from slavery. I don't need to unpack the idea of slavery here. But people trapped by a mindset that they need freedom from. The recurrent plagues that then take place as warnings, as a show of power from God. And again, I'm very wary of externalizing God. The idea of externalizing God. I believe that is a very disempowering way of connecting to God. Because then again, this moment I would not be able to have this moment if I were to externalize God. Because then there is no opportunity for God to speak through a human. Actually, externalizing God means that there is no possibility of Jesus returning. It would not be possible. Jesus would need to return through a human. I suppose you can say through water. Jesus would need to return through a human. Again, in this case, I believe there are many, not necessarily one human, Oh my goodness, I went down the rabbit hole of Moses' story and I didn't actually manage to share my downloads. But I made notes, and one was from a dream I had. It was a vision of words in a dream. And the words were, there are answers in the questions. And there were more very God Christian sort of like downloads, and I can't remember them clearly now, and I'll share them in the comments if I find them. But it sent me to go and read the Bible, and I didn't know where to start with the Bible, but it sent me to go read the Bible. And I didn't get very far. I didn't start at the beginning. I started with the book of Job. I started there. And I tried to read Genesis. I tried, but then I actually ended up accepting that the answers to who God is may not, at least to me, be found by reading the Bible. And I also came to understand that this effort to understand God through the Bible was again going to limit me. One, through the length of time it requires, the urgency for these answers, and also it's one book. And I need more than one book. That's why I appreciated the mini-series, because it's got people from all different types of faiths and areas of life and work sharing commentary on the story. And so it feels like it's delivered in a very balanced manner. And I really appreciated that. And so then I withdrew from the Bible, and I continue to appreciate the words that are in the Bible as literature, but as very profound and important literature because of its ability to still exist after such a long time. I feel called to end this here. I welcome all comments. I welcome all comments. I am the controversy and the challenging nature of this topic is not lost on me. I would be naive to not anticipate challenging comments. But I believe that more than just me is needed here, and that the conversation should take place. And so I look forward to your comments on this. And I really thank you for making it to this point in this audio, because this obviously would have required a block of time to be taken out. I'm sending you all love, lots of love.